My name is Magda Szpala, or Magda for short. I'm the Sustainability and Resilience Director at BC Housing. I got involved on the Vienna House project early on when we realized that there is an opportunity to test and interject thinking about resiliency measures in the design process. Resiliency is focusing on being better prepared and better able to respond to any shocks and stresses related to climate change. So things like extreme heat, wildfire smoke, flooding, and so on. So it allows us to build buildings in a way that will be able to withstand those extreme weather events. There is also an element of bouncing back from those extreme weather events. The timing worked out really well because we've just started our collaboration with Pacific Climate Impacts Consortium and Pacific Institute for Climate Solutions. And through that collaboration, we worked with an architect and a master's student, Ilana Judah, who was working on developing this new tool called IBAMA, Integrated Building Adaptation and Mitigation Assessment. The Vienna House project was in very early stages of pre-design process. So we gathered together the project team and we ran a series of 3 workshops where the teams were asked to identify what are the climate hazards for that specific location. And then based on conversations and a lot of research, identify which hazards and what specific measures can be integrated into the building design. Through the IBAMA process, we've identified that the top risks for the Vienna House project are extreme heat, wildfire smoke, and more frequent and intense precipitation, so flooding due to intense rains. Because we were early in the design process, we were able to integrate thinking about how to address those hazards early into design criteria, and we had conversations among the project architect and engineers as well as climate experts. And through those conversations that we facilitated, the Vienna House project now includes some of the resiliency measures that are a little bit more innovative. Some of the considerations through that process that we've identified were specific to addressing extreme heat. So Vancouver's climate traditionally didn't require cooling, and historically we didn't have to worry about being too hot in the summer in our buildings. Whereas in the last few years, we've experienced some extreme high temperatures, and the location on Vienna House is not immune to that. And so extreme heat presents a very high hazard as far as the residents' health and safety. One of the concepts in resiliency that's very important is called redundancy, which means using more than enough kind of different overlapping strategies so that when you're in a situation where one hazard prevents you from using certain measure, there is another way to deal with that hazard. The shape of Vienna House is such that it's kind of more like an O shape with the courtyard in the middle. And all the units have windows on both sides of the units. So if we are able to open those windows, that will create a natural draft and ventilation. And in addition to that, there is also mechanical ventilation in the units. In situations that we have had in the past, such that we have high temperatures, but also, say, wildfire smoke in the city where it's really hard to breathe outside. In those situations, those windows can be closed and the tenants can rely on mechanical ventilation. So that's a great example of how, by using both natural and mechanical ventilation, we anticipate ability to address different situations. In 2021 in BC, we've experienced the heat dome event, which meant extremely high temperatures for a number of days. And as a result of that event, there was over 600 people that died across the province. And it really, I think, shook everyone This event really kind of shaken us up in terms of realizing that the temperatures that we observed during that event was something that no one expected to experience so soon. So while they were aligned with the climate models, the models predicted that those temperatures will be experienced into the future. And so when it happened in 2021, it really changed the conversation. And the project team on Vienna House was also part of that experience in terms of realizing that we no longer talk about extreme weather into the future. We can talk about very extreme weather events that we've had that year, that we've already experienced. And that includes both the heat dome as well as the atmospheric river that we had later that year with very, very intense rains and flooding that we've experienced. When the BC coroners did study on people that unfortunately lost their lives during the heat dome, what they found is that majority of people that died were socially isolated, and they were also seniors. This was a very interesting finding because I think before the assumption was that it was people who were outside, people who were homeless were more at risk, but there was very few of those people that died during the heat dome. It was actually people who were inside where the temperatures oftentimes were even higher than the temperature outside that died. We realized that social isolation is one of the very high risk factors. And what's so interesting about the Vienna House project is that the design team spent quite a bit of time looking at how the design of a building can contribute to social interactions and social connections. Measuring social connections and social interactions is very difficult to measure. The team was lucky again with the timing because we made a connection with new researchers and yet another new tool. So we work with Fluid Sociality, which is a software tool that enables the design team to model the building and look at the interactions that certain designs facilitate or not facilitate. And so through the testing of the Vienna House design in the Fluid software, contributed to the decision of creating a design that includes the courtyard and includes slightly wider corridors so that they promote more social interaction and allow people to see each other more and have a conversation and sort of make those social connections. And in resiliency study and literature, we know that social connections are actually one of the key aspects of being able to respond in a situation of crisis or emergency. Oftentimes when some sort of emergency strikes, people think that there will be someone else who will come and rescue them. And sometimes that is the case, but oftentimes it's people who are next to you that are the first responders. And so that means your neighbors. And through the design of Vienna House that intentionally facilitates social interactions, we believe that it will contribute to greater social resilience of the tenants. We know that we can rely on our neighbors. We know that people can feel safer if they know that in times of crisis there will be someone checking on them and they know who their neighbors are. Vienna House right now is in final stages of construction. We are speaking in March 2025, and the plan is that the building will be occupied by the end of the year. From BC Housing's perspective, this project has been unique in the sense of the amount of collaboration and very aspirational goals that were set. And I think it proved that a lot of good things as far as building better buildings can be achieved without necessarily a huge additional cost. And if there is initial higher cost, it can be offset by the value that those different measures provide over time. We do hope that there will be more buildings similar to Vienna House in our social housing portfolio, especially considering that social housing provides homes for the most vulnerable citizens, and they deserve to live in places that feel safe and have additional attributes that contribute to their sort of health and well-being. So it's not just a roof over their head and a shelter, but actually a home that people like being in and have social connections and a sense of belonging. If I was to imagine what it would be like to go into the Vienna House when there is people who moved in there and live there, and especially if it's a beautiful spring day, I would expect to see that there is people outside, that there is kids playing in the courtyard, that there is neighbors talking to neighbors. The courtyard will have natural light, obviously, because it's open so you can see the sky. You're also very close to the Trout Lake Park, so there's that natural connection to the green space and the natural environment. And I think it will become a model for how to do a really good social housing building with a lot of additional benefits.